Okay, in this video, we're going to be doing a couple of things. One thing we're going to do is we're going to learn how we can find take a target that we see on the screen and then find it out in the real world by looking out the window. Okay. Remember that we're using the radar as a tool to help us find targets, but we should be spending a lot of time looking out the windows at the real world. Okay, not just at our electronics. So one thing we're going to do is we're going to learn how we can find a target in the real world that we can see on our radar, and then we're also going to we're going to contemplate a little bit about the rules of the road, and for vessels that are within sight. And so we're going to identify all these vessels, find them, look out the window, and then determine their aspect. Okay, and we're going to do that in the daytime and then the nighttime. And then so this is just a small introduction to the rules of the road as they apply for this lab. Okay, and but you're going to be diving into these rules of the road much more deeply in your rules class. Okay, so first thing we do is, as I look here, okay, I've got 5 targets. Now in the radar lab, we're going to tell you to name these targets 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, and we named them because we started off, here's our heading flash. So, by the way, we're in 6-mile scale. Okay, so this is 1, 2, 3. So all the vessels are within 4 miles of us. Okay, we're in north up. Okay, and I have some trails on too. Okay, now. Right now, you probably can't figure out what these trails are telling you, but what the heck is a trail? You see these yellow dots, these very bright yellow dots on the radar screen? Those are where the vessel is actually at the moment relative to us. And these trails are indicating its relative motion. So what they're telling us is what was the range and bearing of that vessel a few minutes ago? So it was there relative to us, now it's here. Okay, so with time, and some practice, you'll be able to interpret what these trails mean. For instance, this is telling me that vessel, okay, if it was to follow along in that sort of pattern, is going to cross within less than a mile ahead of me. So that has a very close CPA. Okay, now that vessel is also on my starboard side, and the rules say that a vessel on your starboard side, if you're in a crossing situation, you're the burden vessel. So right off the bat, I can tell that I am going to have to alter course for this guy. Okay, this vessel here, is either slowly coming towards me or I am overtaking it. Okay, this vessel over here is behind us, and that trail is telling me that it is slowly overtaking us. It's on our starboard quarter. This vessel over here, what that trail is telling me is that it is overtaking us, and it's overtaking us faster than this one. So both of these vessels are overtaking us, okay, which means they're the burden vessels. They're behind us, they're going faster than us, they're supposed to stay out of our way. And then we've got this vessel, okay. What this is telling me is that our relative motion, that vessel is coming down this way. I bet you that vessel is on a reciprocal course from us, okay, and so what that says is that that's what we call meeting. Okay, so this is either meeting or overtaking. This is probably going to be meeting, but when two vessels are meeting, they're supposed to, the rules generally say that you should pass port to port, and that's what's going on right here, right now. I'm not going to go too much more into depth as to what all those trails mean. At this point, you probably don't understand that stuff, but be advised that that is stuff we're going to be working on heavily in the lab. Okay, so in the next few weeks. So now what I want to do is I want to go from the radar, taking a target on the radar and finding it in the world. Okay, so to do that, there's a variety of ways to do that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn an EBL on, electronic bearing line. And I'm going to start by looking at this target here, target 1. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to put that EBL through that target. So according to that, the bearing to that vessel is about 025. So if it's it's 25 degrees, it's 025 true, and it's also 25 degrees off of our bow. This is where we're headed right now. That's our heading line. It's 25 degrees off of our bow. So if I wanted to find that vessel, I would look out the window and I would look directly ahead, and then I would come over about 25 degrees, and that is where that vessel is. So let's zoom in on that vessel. Okay, and take a good look at what it looks like. Okay, looks to me like that's a container ship. All right, and as I look at that, I'm realizing that that's the, wait a minute, where's the, okay. Okay, let's do this. Let me zoom out for a second so you can see my finger. Okay, that's the bow on that side, that's the stern on that side, okay? And I can tell that, I can recognize that through practice, all right? But what I'm looking at here is, as I look at that vessel, as I recognize that, I can see that I am looking at the port quarter of that vessel, okay? I'm on the port side, and I'm behind that vessel, okay? And what the radar is telling me is, over here, what the radar was telling me is that I am actually catching up to that vessel, which means I am overtaking it. So this aspect, I'm looking at the port quarter of that vessel. Since I am catching up to that vessel, I am overtaking. They have the right of way. I'm supposed to stay clear of them. So that's the first vessel. Okay, now what we're going to do is I'm going to zoom out. We're going to take a look at Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the second vessel. Okay, so I'm just going to move my EBL over to the second vessel. Okay, and that's bearing from my bow is about 0.45. It's 45 degrees off my bow. And also because I'm north up and I'm going 0.00, that's also 45 degrees true, 0.45 true. But anyway, so let's find that vessel. So I come back here, here's my bow, and now I come over 45 degrees, and there's that vessel right there, okay? So let's zoom in on that vessel, okay? So we're zoomed in now. I can see I'm looking at the port side of this vessel as well, okay? So here's the bow on this side, there's the stern, okay? So that vessel I was looking at its port side, but I'm looking, that's the stern of that vessel, okay? If I put my binoculars on there, I could probably read the name of the vessel right there. But this, I'm looking at the port bow, okay? This is a different situation, okay? I am looking at the port bow of a vessel, and it looks like it's going from starboard to port. So I am in, by recognition of the aspect, I can see that I'm in a crossing situation, and I am the burden vessel. If I believe that I want to pass this vessel, I want to pass the stern of this vessel. So I am burdened to alter course to starboard, okay, to pass the stern of that vessel. Okay, so anyway, that's what the rules of the road would say for that situation. That was target 2. Okay, so now let's go to target 3. So I'll put my EBL on target 3, and it looks to me like its bearing is about 110 degrees off the bow. It's also 110 degrees true. So I come here, I look at the bow, and I come over here. That's 90 degrees, okay? So from the bow to there, 90 degrees, that's on my beam. So now I want to go a little bit, oh, there it is right there. So this is the third vessel, okay? This is a tanker, okay, it looks like, or, you know, or some kind of bulk cargo. Okay, it's got cranes. It's probably a bulk cargo. Anyway, there we go. We're looking at that vessel. And now for this vessel, I am also looking at its port side. I know that because I can recognize that the house is aft. Here's the bow up here. If I put my binoculars on, I'd see the name right there. Okay, I can also see the lights in this one, but we're going to come back and look at the lights in just a minute. We're going to make it dark. Okay, so on the radar, as I was looking at that, this trail is telling me that vessel is actually going a little bit faster than us. It's overtaking us. And as I look over here, I'm seeing that the vessel, I'm looking at its port bow, and it's going in this direction, and that confirms what the radar was telling me. When you see a situation like this, okay, and the vessel's coming up from behind you, they're the burden vessel, okay? So let's go to the fourth vessel. Swing my EBL around to that one. Okay, so the true bearing to that vessel is 250, okay? But we can think about this another way too, okay? That's 90 degrees off my port bow, and then it's another 20 degrees, okay? So if I want to find that vessel out the window, I go to the bow, I go 90 degrees, and then I go another 20 degrees, and there it is, right there, okay? So as I look at that, I can see, hey, that's a high-speed ferry, okay? That's a high-speed ferry, and I'm looking at its starboard side. So here's the bow, there's the stern. We'll worry about the lights in just a minute. Okay, but that vessel, according to the radar, was also overtaking us. So they're the burden vessel, and so in this situation, we should hold our course and let them pass us. They should alter course to avoid us. Okay, so that was that vessel, and then the last vessel is this one on our port bow right here. Okay, so let me put the EBL on him, or her, or it, they, as you prefer. And that is, the true bearing is 333, but as I go here, it's 10, 20, 27 degrees off the bow. So 27 degrees is not a whole heck of a lot, so that's about right there, okay? And as we look here, we can see that that is a cruise ship, okay? It's a cruise ship. Now, according to the radar, okay, you probably can't figure this out at the moment, but according to the radar, looking at the trail there, I'm thinking that that vessel's on a reciprocal course to us, okay? So I come over here and I zoom in on that guy. Let's just take a look at the aspect of that vessel. So yeah, I'm looking at the port bow of that vessel on the left, and the stern is on the right. So yes, and we'll worry about the lights again in just a minute, but for this, we're on reciprocal courses. This is called meeting, okay? Meeting. And what we're supposed to do is, if we feel like we're a little bit too close, is both vessels are supposed to alter course to starboard to pass port to port. Well, right now, we are definitely both passing port to port, and I feel fine with our CPA, so I feel like we're probably okay, okay? So anyway, that's a little bit of the rules of the road. Now, the rules that I talked to you about they go into, if they're in effect for when you're in what's called, sort of, when you're kind of thinking about you and one other vessel. Because we've got 5 other vessels here, we can be in something of a complicated situation, and then we'd have to start thinking how we would apply the rules there. But anyway, let's not worry about that for now. Okay, great. So we identified the vessels on the radar. You're going to learn how to interpret those trails to learn what they tell you about whether you're meeting, overtaking, so on and so forth. We figured out how we could take bearings and find the vessels in the real world, and then we looked at all those vessels and we looked at their aspects and we talked to them about the rules of the road. Now what I want to do is I want to make it dark, and I want to look at all those vessels again so we can see their lights. Okay, so that's what we're going to do now. Okay, so you can see that it's getting a little bit more like twilight now, and we can make out the silhouettes of the vessels still, but now their lights are visible. Okay, so we're going to go through these vessels again. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're going to take one more peek at them. I'm not going to use the EBL this time though, because I don't think we need it anymore. Okay, so this guy that was about 20 degrees off our starboard bow, let's take a look at that one. All right, so there's the vessel. This is the vessel that we are overtaking, okay? So if it was a little bit darker, we wouldn't be able to see the silhouette of that vessel at all. We would not see the silhouette of the vessel at all. We might just see that light. Okay, there you go. You see it's darker now. We can't see the vessel. So that vessel, all I see is that white light. Now that is very difficult to distinguish from a star. That's a star. That is the stern of that vessel. So first up, when you're looking for lights of vessels, you're not going to look up in the sky. But anyway, that is a single white light. If I'm seeing a single white light, that tells me a couple things. But one possibility is that I'm looking at the stern of a vessel. Okay. Anyway, that's the case. So if you were coming up behind a vessel, you should see one single white light. That's what we see, and that's telling me that I'm overtaking that vessel. Okay. So let's zoom out, and we'll go down here, and then we had this vessel. Now this vessel here. So anyway, there we go. That vessel there is crossing our bow, and it's on our starboard side. So that means that we are the burden vessel. So we're going to have to alter course to the starboard. So let's take a look at that vessel in the dark and see what that looks like. So that looks like that, okay? So we have 2 white lights, okay? One of those is called the masthead light. That's the one on the left, and the one on the right is called the range light, okay? And what that's telling me is that this is the lower one is always on the bow of the vessel, and the upper one is on the stern. So what that's telling me is that that's the bow, that's the stern, and because based on that orientation, where the lower one is to the left, it's telling me the vessel's going in that direction, and because they are spread apart, I know that I'm looking at something of its port side. Now, I should also expect to see a red light, and I don't know if you can exactly make it out, but the red light is right there. I can make it out just looking out the window, but with the camcorder, it's not quite so visible. It's just right. There's a little faint essence of red right underneath that white light, okay? So that is also confirming that I'm looking at the port side. Red means stop, okay? If I'm looking at the port side of the red light of a vessel, that means they have the right of way. So I would yield to that vessel, and if the CPA, the closest point of approach, was too small for our comfort, I would be the burden vessel. I would have to alter course to starboard, take their stern. When you alter course to let a vessel pass ahead of you, you take its stern. Okay, if we were to alter course to port and try to scooch ahead of them, that would be a violation of the rules. Okay, so anyway, all right, that was target 2. So let's look again at the radar. Okay, and let's take a look at the vessel that was on our starboard quarter. Okay, so that was over here, and there we are, we see it. So this vessel was overtaking us, it's behind us, and again, the lights are telling that same story. This is the masthead light, that's the range light. The masthead light is low, it's on the bow, the range light is up higher, okay? And that's telling us that the vessel is going this way. Plus I have the red light, which is clearly visible on this vessel, which is telling me I'm looking at its port side, okay? The red light could be back here, it could also be up here, it just depends on the vessel. Typically for large vessels, it's gonna be back on the house, okay? Most commercial vessels are house aft, but if this was a house forward vessel, then that red light would be up here. But because these two are spread out, what that's telling me is that I'm not looking dead on, I'm not looking astern, but I'm looking at it's somewhere a little bit forward of the beam, okay? But that is telling me that that vessel is overtaking us. I'm looking at its port side. So because it's got that port light, you would say, oh, we should get out of their way. But the rules of the road say that if a vessel is overtaking another vessel, the overtaking vessel should stay clear of the vessel they're overtaking. So even though we're seeing the port side, because that vessel is overtaking us, they are the burden vessel. They're supposed to stay clear of us. Okay, so now we come back to the radar. And now we got this vessel over here. Target 4 on our port quarter. So again, we went like this, and there's the vessel right there. Okay, so this is a small vessel, okay? You can see there's a single white light there. All right, now small vessels are not, you'll learn what the rules are, but vessels over a certain size, X number of meters, okay, are required to have at least 2 of those lights, okay, a masthead light and a range light. But small vessels, it's optional. So this vessel decided not to have that, that range light, okay? But what you can see is the masthead light and the starboard green light, okay? And what this is telling me is I'm looking at the starboard aspect of that vessel, okay? So I have the right of way because I see the green, but the other thing is that vessel is overtaking us as well, so they have to stay clear of us, okay? So that's that vessel. And then the final vessel that we want to look at is this one. Now what the radar there is telling me is that they are on our port bow and they're coming on a reciprocal course. And that's called meeting, okay? And meeting means that neither one of us has the right of way. We're supposed to stay clear of each other. And typically when two vessels are meeting, when they're on reciprocal courses and you'll learn exactly how many angles to one side of the bow, you'll learn that in the rules of the road, but we're fairly close to meeting right now. We're both supposed to alter our course to starboard. Okay, so let's take a look at the lights on that. That is that ferry, that cruise ship. Cruise ships are typically very well lit, okay, and this one certainly is, okay? And our task right here is to try and pick out the navigation lights, and it's very difficult on a cruise ship. But you can see that there's a high, all the way to the left, you can see the masthead light, the round light, on the bow, and then behind it a little bit and up is the range light, and then between them a little bit lower is the port light, okay? And what that's telling me is I'm looking at the port bow. Something that's interesting to note here is that see how those two white lights are very close together, but over here they are more spread apart? When the lights are closer together, typically that means you're looking more on their bow, and when the lights are spread out, it means you're typically looking more towards their beam. Okay? And that's something you're going to have to think about a little bit. What that's telling me is I'm not looking dead onto the bow. If I was looking dead onto the bow of that vessel, those two white lights would be in line, okay? But anyway, that's something else that we'll leave for another lesson. And that more or less concludes what we wanted to talk about here, and that's it for that.